Look, MotoGP, I'm just saying, you've had Race of the Year contenders every time Dre Harrison has been in the building this year. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. Hi, everyone. RJ O'Connell leading the introductions on this episode number 462 of Motorsport 101, where today we're going to be talking about MotoGP's British Grand Prix. With me, as always, as you know, is your friend Cam Buckley. How's the weather up there in sunny New England? You got your Dunkin' spiked yet?
No, because if I'm drinking a coffee, I'm not trying to relax, and if I'm drinking alcohol, I'm not trying to wake up. The weather is currently cloudy, and it's going to rain in the next hour because I was going to go walk down to my favorite sandwich shop and get dinner, and I'd rather not swim home.
Well, instead of a sandwich, you can enjoy a hearty, nutrition-packed review of what was, as Dre Harrison would put it, the best MotoGP race of the season, bar none. Not
even close.
Easy.
This one is an easy choice. And just think, I could probably take a bite out of one of those MotoGP bikes. It's not like they're good for anything else.
Okay, so motorsport101.com for all things Motorsport 101, podcasts, written material. You can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/motorsport101. This month of August, early access to all of our shows is just $1 a month. That's an 80% discount on the normal rate for early access. Who doesn't love a sale at a time like this? It's back to school season. It's just about fall. Everybody's looking to save where they can. So consider that $10 gets you into the supporters club of our Discord community for where you can listen to these shows as they're being recorded. And you know where else to find us. Instagram, Motorsport 101 Pod, Facebook, Motorsport 101, the platform, formerly known as Twitter, at Motorsport_101. But I'm leading the way here because I want to tee it up for Dre, because this was a big opportunity for you, buddy. This was your first time doing something that I've had the privilege of doing several times. But if anybody has earned this opportunity to be on location at the British Grand Prix with a media pass, God damn it, buddy, it's you. So what was it like? Tell us about it.
Oh, God. Forgive me. This is going to be probably a good 5 minutes just to break all of this down, first and foremost. But hi, as you can probably guess, Dre Harrison here, happily in the co-host's chair on this occasion. The story is that when I was in the WTF1 clubhouse, looking after everybody over there, I got a interesting DM on our Slack chat from Glenn Freeman, who you may know from the Bring Back V10s podcast, does generally excellent work for the race. He just said to me, Dre, we've got an opportunity for you. Monster Energy want to have a guest experience what the Grand Prix is like. And, our guy can't make it. No one else is available. We're an expanded company now because, for those guys who don't know, the race is the parent company of WTF1 now. They were like, Dre likes bikes. Get Dre to do it.
You like bikes?
I'm the shocked. Only one. Yeah, I'm the only one of the WTF1 panel that regularly watches MotoGP. Besides our
change that
resident bike enjoyer.
Resident bike enjoyer Dre Harrison, and they were like, Dre, do you want to go? And I'm like, I'll happily come back, especially given that, and again, a huge shout out and thank you to Monster for this. They covered everything. Travel, hotel, they put me up in a 4-star hotel for the weekend. It was incredible. Like, room service. I had room service for the first time ever.
You enjoy it.
Oh, man, like, I've never ordered. It was a honey-infused meat feast pizza the first night I was in the hotel.
Oh, God, now I want
honey.
pizza.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Hot honey is one of the wonders of the world. It is on everything.
It is a tremendous creation. I do love it. It's delicious. So, yeah, Monster put me up in there for the weekend, and we had a bunch of different activities. The Thursday was media day, and, like, first and foremost, the walk to get around Silverstone is nuts. It got easier because for Saturday and Sunday we had VIP village passes. So, and I'll get to that a little bit later, but we had to walk 25 minutes to get from the front entrance of Silverstone to where the paddock is, because the paddock is now where the Hamilton straight start finish line is. This was the first year in MotoGP they've used that start finish line, not the old start finish line.
I thought this is what Brett was supposed to fit.
Yeah. RJ, I'll have you know that Brexit means Brexit, and because obviously I'm a Monster, I was there on behalf of Monster. They lined up interviews with all of their Monster sponsored athletes. So, for those who don't know, that's Luca Marini, Marco Bezzecchi, more on him in a bit, Francesco Bagnaia, Enea Bastianini, and Fabio Quartararo. So, me and this group of a bunch of other guests that also were journalists were there with me. Shout out to Imogen, Patrick, and Rob. You might know Rob Jones from Crash.net if you're into your bike coverage. All great company, all lovely people, genuinely delightful to share so much time with them and just pick their brains over just the world of journalism in general. And they were all like, I cannot stress this enough. Everybody who gave their time for interviews was great. I'm not just saying this to not bitch about people on a podcast that a few hundred people regularly listen to. I'm genuinely saying it. They were all very nice people, very generous with their time, very candid. Luca Marini dropped a couple of zingers about how MotoGP badly needs its own Drive to Survive, and I couldn't quite get a good enough answer to turn it into a written article for WTF1. But
it's strange because they did try it recently, but apparently like it flopped because like a lot of the audience just like wouldn't read subtitles.
Yeah, like for those who don't know, that's MotoGP Unlimited. They brought it out last year. The problem was that it was in Spanish, and a lot of people you'd be surprised how many people don't like subtitles. Some people do. Like if you're an anime watcher, chances are you probably have. I watched many a Yu-Gi-Oh series with subtitles, but some people just aren't into that, and that's fair enough. That and the fact that one of the big markets for it was obviously us in the UK, and Amazon Prime botched the rollout, and I think that put a lot of people off from the initial hype of it coming out. And it tanked. And that's why I got cold after one season. So Luca Marini was great. Marco Bezzecchi loved the fact that we were both Inter Milan fans. So he loved the fact that I interviewed him while wearing an Inter shirt. That was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So that, again, incredibly polite. Like the VR46 Academy does a brilliant job of teaching riders very good English and also just being polite and just incredibly kind people, like just all very, very nice people. And again, shout out to the Mooney VR46 camp. They put us up there in their hospitality all weekend long as well. And their food was... You got to watch
like part of this from their garage.
Yeah.
Which had to be fun.
Oh, the Saturday I was a VIP in the back of their garage during FP3 on Saturday morning, where the rain was absolutely pissing it down. They were going 20 seconds a lap slower than what they were doing in dry conditions. And like, I'm 3 feet from Luca Marini's MotoGP bike. He's the other, like there's a wall when the riders sit in the back when they're going through setups and shit like that. There is a wall on that left-hand side on it'll be Marini's right. I'm on the other side of that wall. I can see his head over the wall. That's how close I was. Got to shake hands with Uccio. I praised him, saying well done for learning English really well, because he's done a couple of TNT Sports interviews lately and his English has massively improved. And I always have a lot of time and respect for people that have gone out of their way to learn. Takes a lot of doing. And again, all very, very nice people. Big shout out to the VR46 team, who were incredibly generous and gracious with all the extra perks they gave us, like being in their hospitality wing, having an infinite supply of Monster, and interviews with their riders. Francesco Bagnaia in particular, we only had 10 minutes for him. He gave us 25. Like, Bagnaia is just a class act. Again, all lovely people. Fabio Quartararo was incredibly candid, very honest for a man who's not having a good time in MotoGP, to say the least, and still gave us smiles, time, selfies, you name it. He was just a very, very nice man. Shout out to all of them. I've got to give a mention as well for the fact that Friday was a genuine career highlight for me, because not only I was able to sit down with a bunch of great media folks and pick their brains. I got a scooter ride around parts of the track, and I got 45 minutes of Randy Mamola. And for those who know about the quality of British bike racing coverage, or European in general, because it was Eurosport, that team in the 2000s growing up, the team of Toby Moody, Julian Ryder, Neil Spolders, and Randy Mamola were an incredible broadcast team. And Randy Mamola is a legend before I even talk about the incredible charity work he's done with Riding for Life and the millions of pounds he's raised for charity over the years since bike racing. And of course, he was an incredible bike rider as a Republic, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, to never win a world title, as it is. And then I'm standing with him at the inside of Cops, just chatting about bikes, and talking about the state of the sport, like why he thinks Japan might quit. I wish I was recording the conversation, because it would have made for a fantastic podcast in its own right. Randy Mamola is an incredible guy, and he was so generous. It was only meant to be a 20-minute ride. I did 45 minutes with him, because I think he could tell that I actually really cared and was genuinely a huge fan. Again, I was in the Yamaha hospitality unit, just watching the end of FP2 on Friday afternoon with him, and just chatting about everything. It felt like I was in a commentary box with him. And he said, "Dre, are you a broadcaster? Because it feels like you've got the voice for it." And I said, "Well, actually," which I thought was quite funny. But that was incredible. So, look, I could go on for another 10 minutes if I really wanted to. I'm going to spare you all of that. But
no, keep going. That's the podcast.
We also add another welcome reunion of friend of the program, now fellow commentator for the MotoGP World Team, Lewis Sotheby.
Yes, the man, the myth, the legend. I got to see Lewis cook in person. We had to get the money shot for the Discord server, but again, I cannot stress enough how immensely proud I am of Lewis, and the fact that he is killing it alongside Matt Burke on the World Feed commentary is remarkable. He does an unbelievable job. He works so hard. He is an encyclopedia of stats and knowledge, and he's a brilliant commentator. And the fact he came through us, and the fact that we're now arm in arm and we're both professional broadcasters and journalists, is immense. Just giving him a hug and just saying, "My dude, we made it." It was remarkable. I've said about it before. I've said as a humble brag, the fact that 4 of us started out doing this and we've all gone on to be professional journos in our own right, partly through this, is remarkable as a hit rate. Someone hire Cam already. Cam is an oracle of knowledge.
I'm afraid of commitment.
But immensely proud to see him. I just want to get a few shout outs because I want to mention a lot more people before I move on real quick. So I just want to say, again, huge thanks to Matt Beer and Glenn Freeman of the race, who thought of me and to give me the opportunity. It was the best motorsport weekend I've ever had in my life. And I was very proud that my media pass, which I don't know if you can even see on this Riverside here, is now hanging on the back of my door. Because, in my opinion, you never forget your first in many facets of life. So thank you. So thank you to Matt and Glenn for thinking of me. It was incredibly nice of them. And I got to be on the Races MotoGP podcast for the first time in my debut on that. And
we got Harrison v. Patterson.
It was a thing, and I did actually kind of let Patterson know about that going in, and he just laughed it off. Patterson is a great sport. Shout out to him. Again, Simon Patterson took on I know we've not always been the kindest about his coverage on this show, and I'd be a fool not to admit that. Yeah. However, in person, he was an angel. He looked after me. He reserved the seat on the desk next to him. Didn't even ask to do that. He just did it because he just thought of me. He helped me through the media debriefs on Sunday afternoon, and that whole idea of separating being a fan and being a journalist and just getting into that routine of what it's like to be in a paddock. He and his wife Maddie were angels. They were tremendous. They made me feel welcome. They made me feel special, and they were fantastic people to be around for all 4 days. So a huge thank you to Simon and Maddie Patterson for that. A huge thank you to Matt Oxley and David Emmett, who I actually got to meet in person for the first time. They have been huge inspirations towards the work that I've done. They are absolutely incredible. They are the two best biking journos in the business. No disrespect to anybody else, but David and Matt are great people. And like, again, Matt was incredibly welcome. I was like, oh, first time, Dre. And I was like, yes. And like, guys, David Emmett recognized us. We were like you're from
God.
It's like, you're from M101, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, keep up your tweeting shit. We like that. David Emmett is a class act. Matt Oxley are both tremendous class acts. Again, just great journos, great people. Again, incredibly kind and gracious with their time, and, were just very welcoming when they didn't have to be. And they were. Shout out to Matt Dunn, who's also, and Josie Smith, who part of the American racing team, who was on the desk opposite me as well. Fantastic. Matt's done. You might have heard him before, like commentating on Moto E. He's now with the American racing team in Moto 2. Him and Josie are, again, amazing people, very kind, gracious with their time as always. Catherine Dick, who was also there as part of, because they actually had this idea where they were bringing future journalists along to help with the media coverage of their Grand Prix weekend. A fantastic incentive to try and get people into the industry. I wish more places did that. So huge shout out to them for being able to do that. Again, everyone at the race I was on for their podcast with us, and I've got to include Valka Renevsky as well. Again, another fantastic all-round brilliant journo for Formula One, MotoGP, fellow sports nerd. And all of that. So again, shout out to all of them. And of course, a huge thanks to Monster for putting me up, and just the amount they actually put in. It wasn't just a matter of, being in the media center, but, just getting interviews, getting coverage, tickets to the concert, the VIP village, and I was able to take pictures of the actual championship trophy, which is nuts, to be able to do that.
When are you showing up in the intro?
When I get a job as a bike rider, they could put me in the light box. I'm sure they can figure something out. Yeah, just an incredible weekend. And yeah, I hope it's not the last one. I'd like to think it won't be, but I never rest on my laurels, so you never know what will happen. But if it's just this one, it's pretty friggin' special. So thanks to everybody that made it an amazing weekend. Again, shout out as well to Patrick, Rob, and Imogen as well, who I was with as part of the Monster crew, and Tom Baker, who was, no Doctor Who references here, but yes, Tom Baker of Monster, for again thinking of us and setting that all up. It was incredible. They were fantastic. So that's enough about me for now. I think it's fair to say.
No, like you've honestly like earned so much of that with your knowledge of the sport. Like it's so crazy to me that it took this long for you to get an opportunity to actually do something like this. But you've knocked it out of the park, and I know this is not going to be your last opportunity to do something like this.
Thank you, RJ. That's very kind of you to say. Oh, just before I move on real quick, for those who are fans of this stuff and the written stuff in general, there's already one piece on the race regarding my general thoughts on Silverstone as a race weekend. that's on there right now. I joked on Twitter that me and Simon Patterson working on the same article is a bit like the final episode of Dragon Ball Super when Goku and Frieza are fighting Jiren, which is, if you know, you know. I thought that was quite funny to you anime fans out there. There is one more piece that is actually a solo piece written by yours truly about one of the men I'm about to talk about. It was on an Aprilia, and his name was Miguel Oliveira. So I'm going to have my first solo article on the race later this week. So if you're a fan of how I generally get down in terms of a writer, you're in for an extra treat. I never thought I'd see myself on the race in written form with my name on a piece, which is wild. But here we are. What can you say?
That does sound incredible. Like, I'm looking forward to that. All right. So, should we get into the British Grand Prix? As we said at the top, best Grand Prix of the year. Aleix Espargaro won a classic British Grand Prix at Silverstone this weekend. Francesco Bagnaia actually led the vast majority of the race, as he typically tends to do, after a beautiful double pass of Jack Miller and pole sitter Marco Bezzecchi. Bezzecchi crashed out shortly later after locking his brake through Stowe, trying to chase down and retake the lead from Bagnaia. It looked like Bagnaia had it in the bag, as he always does, but with a brave pass out of Stowe into Maggots from Aleix Espargaro on the final lap, it won him his second career MotoGP race. And for the first time in their history, all four Aprilias made the top 10, with Miguel Oliveira going from 16th to 4th, Maverick Vinales 5th, and Raul Fernandez leading that achievement in 10th. Dre, what does this result mean for Aprilia? How good was that race?
Probably the best MotoGP race since the start of 2022, I want to say. Comfortably the best race in a good year and a half. This sport needed a race like this weekend. Like, we had a 5-week-long winter break because of the Kazakhstan cancellation. And summer is debatable, especially in England if you saw the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Not great. Climate change is a bitch. We need to do something about that. Anyway, this was like the sport just kind of felt empty for the 5 weeks we weren't racing. And it's nice that even in not particularly friendly conditions, not with particularly friendly and conducive bikes at the moment, that we still were able to have a brilliant Grand Prix with action all over the front. We had 5 contenders for the win across the course of the entire race distance. We thought it was going to be a Bagnaia, take the lead, then can't pass him sort of race. We've seen this so many times before in the last year and a half, where someone can stay with Bagnaia, but they can't pass him. And Bagnaia put in a real champion's ride to even get 20 points out of this in the end, because Ducati did not have it all their own way this weekend at all. Like,
strange, because they've had it their way for most of the season.
Yeah, before this race, Ducati had won 14 out of the last 18, and 3 of the other 4 had come from Alex Rins on 2 different bikes. More on him later, but it is wild that Ducati has been so dominant, and this was peak Aprilia conditions. It's cold, and it was low grip because the track was constantly green because of the amount of rainfall that we had, and in those sorts of low grip scenarios, Aprilia shines. That's how Aleix Espargaro won his first Grand Prix at Argentina last year, because you forget that the Termas Rio del Hondo, no one races on it besides MotoGP most years. So the track was dusty as hell. So low grip, that's when Aprilia shines. And Aleix Espargaro, I'm stunned he didn't hop off the bike and immediately put his nuts in a wheelbarrow because of how large they were to be able to...
Hell of a pass.
Yeah, you're doing 170 miles an hour into Maggots on the MotoGP bike, side by side with Francesco Bagnaia, who is the latest of the late breakers normally. He reminds me of Dovi on those sorts of last lap scenarios where you cannot outbrake him. You've got to get a run of the gods, and that's exactly what Aleix got through Stowe, which, again, incredibly brave corner to take a gamble on. given that the rain was coming down and it was hitting the back end of the track the hardest. And
yeah, that's the other thing too. It was like a non-zero amount of moisture. There's less grip off that line.
Yeah, with about 8 laps to go, it started to spit, started to cool off, and as you said, Dre, that's really when the Aprilia, the traits of that bike come to the fore. And Aleix just, if Gap biked it, and it worked.
He said that motherfucker, and it worked to perfection. And yeah, that was a even more impressive win than his first MotoGP win. Because let's not forget, his first win, he beat Jorge Martin in a shootout, one of the fastest men in the world on 2 wheels. And like that was some minor thing. And this was him winning from 12th on the grid. And won it with half a lap to spare and beat Bagnaia head-to-head to do it. That's incredibly difficult to do, no matter what sort of scenario or what sort of pound-for-pound measure you want to say about these bikes at all. Like, incredible. You know, incredible performance from Aleix Espargaro. And Aprilia in general. Like, this
Miguel Oliveira, we cannot talk about this dude enough. Easily the best performance from a rider who did not win this Grand Prix.
And Rain God himself, he cashes in one of these per year where he just looks like the most incredible rider in the world in wet conditions. And again, they're getting there, R&F with this Aprilia. It is taking some time, but they do seem to be getting there. And Mickey put I think it was on the run out of Stowe, pulled off a great double pass in the closing stages of the race.
Final corner, Cam. Final corner. Club. It was the final corner where he got out and he passed Binder and Vinales at once. It was incredible. Like, I talk about this a little bit more in my piece on the race, which will probably be out by the time this podcast goes out. But Miguel Oliveira's career has always been one of promise, but never quite fully realizing his full potential. And it's easy to forget there has been no rider more dinged up. Maybe not having a catastrophic injury like Alex Rins' leg break, but a guy that's been beaten up over the course of the year like Miguel Oliveira has. He was spiked at Portimao by Marc Marquez when he locked his brake. He had a leg contusion that took a round to recover from. He finished 5th at Cota, which a lot of people don't remember that Miguel Oliveira was 5th that day. And then he was clattered in that free bike scrap between him, Bez and Fabio at Jerez, and that put him out for another round. And his shoulder is still not at 100% after that incident. He admitted it after the race in his debrief that he's not at 100% yet, and he had to pull out of the Aston TT before the break because the shoulder pain was too much. Like, he had to park it. He could not. He said he could not grip his handlebar properly. That is just that's a no-go. You can't race in those conditions. So there was a run. I think it was. I looked at the lap times to make sure on this one. Between laps 14 and 18 of this race, Miguel Oliveira took 4 seconds out of Francesco Bagnaia. It was on average of 0.8 per lap. There was, I think, 2 laps in there where he was 1.2 and 1.3 seconds quicker than Francesco Bagnaia, the best rider on the planet.
Very normal lap time chart. Yeah, I mean, can't really put it better myself, honestly. And really, it's been a shame watching him be hurt so much because you take time to get used to a new bike. And the fact that he's doing this well, despite the fact that he's been knocked off his bike 6 times this year.
Yeah.
It should be better than it is.
It should be better than it is, and Miggy's not been 100% pretty much the entire season. He's on last year's bike. I actually asked him in his debrief, is there any chance they can give you this year's bike? And he said, no, but they might have updates for stuff that they could pass over. But he said, even then, it might be a bit sketchy because the 2023 Aprilia is so different from the 22 version that it might not actually help him out all that much. He said it's possible, but we're going to have to wait and see what Aprilia wants to do. Because, like, when he has been reasonably healthy, Mickey is still fast. And I remember, like, he was the star of pre-season testing last year, where everybody thought, oh, hang on, Miggy's adapted to an Aprilia real fast. This could be one to watch. And we're starting to see some of that potential come out. Couldn't quite get on the podium because he was shoved by Brad Binder, as the Lord does, in the fight for the last podium spot. But incredible ride from him to get from 16th to 4th. That boy Nice is Miguel Oliveira in a nutshell, because he just does shit like that 2 or 3 times a year. So yeah, like incredible stuff from Aprilia. And this is going to be a theme because we're doing an IndyCar episode after this as well with Andretti. I just wish they could do this more.
So the overarching question is, what does this mean for Aprilia? Not much, realistically, because you couldn't have gotten a better situation for them, and it took the mother of all passes to overhaul Pecco. I need to see more. And that feels like that's a big theme of this year, is that, it's great, we need to see more. And then we don't end up seeing more. Like Marco Bezzecchi.
Oh, yeah.
Marco was going for it. He was trying to break later, and I guess when y'all are watching this, like, I had so much going on that I couldn't watch it. One of the people in our Discord that was watching along with us was just like, he's going to fall, and then he puts it on the floor. Low sides it, out of second place, trying to take back the lead. That's a killer.
Well, the problem is we've seen a couple of these crashes where it's not actually the mistake that puts you on the ground. Because, those who don't know, basically he locked his brake with these overloaded, not especially fit for purpose Michelins. When you go over pressure, you have risk of locking the front tire.
Mm.
And releasing the front brake, normally that should get you out of trouble. Well, because these bikes are generating so much aero and so much dirty air, if you get in the slipstream of someone, you can't get back on the brakes, you just crash.
Yeah.
We saw it in this case. We saw it with Mark in Portimao. We saw it with Nakagami last year in Catalunya, where we all raked him over the coals, and it turns out he got on the brakes and basically had no stopping power.
It's a fundamental problem with these bikes. They now generate so much downforce that we are now seeing genuine dirty air consequences of getting on the brakes, and now nothing happening. It was a terrifying crash. He was at 125 miles an hour when he hit the deck. Like, Stowe is, even on bikes, it's a very fast corner. And you're going uphill. The apex is blind. It's a difficult corner. And look, again, I spoke to Bez after the race. He said it himself that, he needs to learn that, if you're going to be following Bagnaia, stay out of his slipstream under braking and go wider on the entry, because he got caught up in the slipstream, locked his front. And the only way you can stop your front from locking is to let go of it, and if you let go of it, your bike accelerates again. It's like playing a video, like, when you're really bad at a racing game and you can't help yourself, like when you've braked too early, you put your foot on the throttle again briefly. That's basically what it feels like. And that's how Bez went down from second, and that's a real shame because it's now put him a full weekend back in the title race. I want to say it's a 47-point lead now for Francesco. Yeah, 47 points back. So it means, Bagnaia's now got an entire weekend in hand in terms of points.
Shout out Jorge Martinez climbed up to second in the standings.
Yeah. Jorge Martinez. Will somebody other than Bagnaia and a Duke put up a title fight, please? To be fair, this one wasn't on Martin. He was punted wide on the first corner of the race. Kane had to come back to finish. I think it was 7th in the end.
I feel like this entire grid has just developed a bozo gene.
Even Bagnaia crashed in qualifying. Not that it mattered or anything.
All of them now have a bozo gene. It's inherent if you're on a Japanese bike. The bozo gene's actually in the bike. It's doubled if you have it and your bike has it. We'll get to them later. But it's just whoever is screwing up the least. And right now it is Bagnaia, even though he is crashing bikes on occasion.
Just, he's not doing it in the key areas anymore now. He's not doing it in races so much, and that's what's bailing him out. Even though he didn't score any points in the sprint, because a shout out to Alex Marquez for getting his first win of any kind in the top flight. He won the sprint.
That had to be great for the Harrison households.
Shout out to Ryan Harrison for exploding.
I had to peel him off the ceiling, and when I got back on Sunday afternoon, it was great. He looked like Cassandra from the first series of the reboot of Doctor Who. If you know, you know. But
That's a good guy.
Yeah, like good for Alex Marquez to get his first sprint win. He had to survive because Bez was gunning him down on the final lap, and Marquez had to hang on, but he did in the end and picked up his first sprint win. So good for him on that one. Bagnaia didn't score at all in that race. He said there was something up with that Ducati. Didn't like his poncho either, given the rain that was affecting that sprint. But let's get into the next major part of this because
we got silly season updates.
We thought the summer break would call forth silly season, and it has done so. The first major domino has fallen. Alex Rins is leaving LCR Honda at the end of the season, and he's gone across the border. He's going to the factory Yamaha team to be Fabio Quartararo's teammate next year, which was a genuine eyebrow raiser. I was like, wow, like Rins got bailed out the first chance he could possibly get.
Wow.
He is gone. So we'll get into a little bit more of the silly season talk in a minute, but what did we first make of the Rins move?
He's going to have a much lower medical bill. Unfortunately, he won't have a whole lot more winnings to pay for it.
Right.
Not in its current state.
No, because and to kind of do a minor sidestep, such was Yamaha's weekend that, well, Fabio Quartararo has given them a month. They have a month to show improvement or he's gone. It's over.
You do not want to lose your ace rider when you're already down in the hole. Like sometimes you need to do it just for like sake of rebuilding, but I do not think at this stage Yamaha can afford to lose Fabio Quartararo.
Both the Japanese makes are screwed. I mean, what does it say about Honda? Their guy that did win a race ran out of that camp as fast as he possibly could, and he's still the highest scoring Honda as a result, despite being out since Italy, and he's still not back yet. And he's probably not going to be back for another couple of races because, I mean, that leg break was horrific. Iker Lecuona instead lost his chance to win the Suzuka 8 Hours to come here and suck.
Oh,
man, I mean, I love that. For a quick shout out, Tetsuda Nagashima, Takuma Takahashi, and Xavi Vierge for winning the Suzuka 8 Hours.
good for
We
them.
can't do a full segment on it. It was as expected. The factory Honda team dominates when there is not much factory competition to compete against.
Well, it didn't
happens.
really help that the factory-ish Yamaha exploded a couple hours into the race, and basically we had to watch someone push a bike from Spoon Curve to the pits.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, fuck
the
that.
The Yamaha died out of Spoon, and man, I would not want to be that guy. And it also rained, which, God, Suzuka in the rain on bikes. Too much
sketchy.
sauce.
It's a bit sketch.
What does this really tell us that we didn't already know?
That Honda's in a bad spot in terms of where they're...
Honda's to the point where they're quite literally running out of bodies to throw at the problem. Because Lecuona was there because of contract. Mark doesn't want to be there. Mir has... Okay.
Mir's got no choice.
Mir's got no choice. And he's only just come back from injury and crashed, 2 corners into the race?
Again, yeah.
Yeah, bike just threw him off. Mark crashed later in the race, having already lost a winglet. Repsol has combined for 1 Sunday finish this year.
Lecuona's matched him in 1 race. Mark has still not finished a feature race this year.
Jesus fucking a half. Nakagami debuted a new aero package, which, in his words, was an improvement in some place. It's very KTM-like. Unfortunately, I don't believe the Repsol boys can actually use it because their aero is homologated for the year. So I think it's just going to be more or less using Nakagami as the test dummy in more ways than one for the rest of this year. In every sense. And Nakagami still finished, 16th with it? He was best Honda, but that's not really saying much now, is it?
That's right. Honda has a perfectly groomed successor in waiting for Taka Nakagami, and Igor just decided,
no thanks,
I'm good.
Yeah. He took one look at that mess and said, actually, I'm just going to keep doing me.
Yeah, like Iagura, who was meant to be a Honda lifer. He was groomed and eyed up from the time he was a teenager to be a future Honda MotoGP rider, has given up on being a Honda MotoGP rider and is apparently in talks to join Mark VDS's Moto2 team next year to replace Sam Lowes, because Sam Lowes is going to World Superbikes next year.
No one wants anything to do with this factory team.
No
one wants to, like, the people who are there under contract and have no choice. Mark, unfortunately, looks like the Grassini seat is going to close up.
Yeah.
There was rumors during the break.
Ironically, because of his brother.
Well, his brother, I think, was always going to stay.
Yeah.
It was more the other seat.
What I was going to say here is that I listened to him on the Thursday press conference. Marc Marquez looks resigned to knowing he's going to be a Honda through next year. There isn't going to be another seat that closes up because the only one that's worth a damn, Ducati don't need him. They don't. He's not a threat right now. Marc Marquez can't finish a race, let alone win one. So, like, let him cook in the worst possible sense. So, like, this leads in quite nicely to the potential next falling of the domino, because the rest of this silly season is in the hands of Marco Bezzecchi. And from what I've been told and from what's now been reported, the choice is clear. Marco Bezzecchi has to choose either staying with his VR46 team, when a team he loves very much, a team that's got him in the opportunity, has got his foot in the door, and he's a title contender right now on the previous year's GP22, right now with Dukes. He stays with them and he takes a GP23 for next year. Or he goes to Pramac, replacing Johan Zarco, and he gets factory equipment. But likely he will not be able to take his crew with him. That will determine what happens next for the silly season, because as you've probably already worked out, Franco Morbidelli is gone from Yamaha, obviously. And
is free agent in the sport right now.
And he is about to fall all the way up onto the moon.
Yeah, because
likely.
Basically what will happen now is that Fabio Di Giannantonio is likely done in the top flight. There's rumours he's going back to Moto2 next year. The story goes is that whatever Bez decides to do, basically Morbidelli will fill in the blank. If Bez goes to Pramac, he will take the VR46 seat that's been left behind. If Bez stays, he'll take the second Grassini alongside Alex Marquez. Because Marquez was confirmed officially yesterday on social media, as well as Neymar, apparently. It's a fun joke. But yeah, that is what's happened. Johan Zarco, if he is booted out of Pramac for Bezzecchi, allegedly has an offer on the table from LCR Honda.
He does not want to go back to production-based bikes because he turned down being Bautista's World Superbike teammate, if I recall.
If an aggressive V4 KTM made Zarco lose his mind to the point where he jumped from being their main man, what the fuck is this current Honda going to do to him?
He claims he's a more mature rider now than he was when he was with KTM, and he says it would be an honor to try to be the one to fix them. Now,
I don't think it's on him, though. It's on HRC.
I agree. I would say this. I think it's a pretty smart hire from Honda if they go get Johan Zarco, because I think he's an excellent baseline guy, and I think he's an excellent developing guy. And he's the only guy on the grid that's now ridden 4 different manufacturers' bikes.
Well, he's on what is technically actually a more up-to-date bike than the factory Ducatis are running, because the factory Ducatis are more or less running last year's Aero package.
Right.
So he would be able to give them insight. The problem is it doesn't seem like HRC is listening to anybody. They just keep plowing their own path because they don't want to invest in Aero, and Aero is the name of the game.
It makes sense for Ducati to play it this way. I think for me, I think Bez takes that deal and goes to Pramac, because I think Bez has to be sitting there as a title contender thinking, great, you've got a Nea Bastianini syndrome right now because you're doing exactly what he did last year. Take last year's bike, perform to a very high level, but ultimately not win the championship. You need to be on a 24 to have any chance of beating Bagnaia. You can't do it on last year's bike, not consistently. So if he wants to win, he has to go to Pramac. I don't see any other way for him. And if Ducati does that, they have now got a fleet of 4 of the best riders in the world, and they are all under the age of 27, which is crazy. You've got Bagnaia, Bastianini, Bezzecchi, and Martin on your 4 headline bikes. That's a fleet. They could form a Megazord with that kind of power.
Dude, Jorge Martin, just for the sake of continuity, is going to have to change his surname to Jorge Martin. I mean, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong, but like, yeah, that's a step. That's like kind of like the kind of fleet that was just like, well, Ducati's dominating, but all the riders are so competitive. Like if that comes together, buddy, now it is actually making sense. Now you are cooking something.
Maybe. I do just think it is hilarious in all of this that Franco Morbidelli, who a couple of months ago looked like he was probably done in the top flight, is about to land on the best bike in the field and leave Fabio Quartararo floundering in 17th.
It's what he does. It's what he deserves. I don't want to see Franco Morbidelli. I didn't want to see Franco Morbidelli going out sad on a sad bike, and we all just think that he never recovered from that knee injury. I think we'll learn if this goes through in 2024 and he does get on Ducati, if he still got something in the tank.
It's going to be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Certainly still effective in low grip conditions because he was extraordinary in the wet on Saturday.
Yeah, like, and like as Jason points out, championship wise, Morbidelli is only 6 points behind Quartararo. Like, I think last year the damage was done with Morbidelli, but he's definitely been better this season, without question. And I said it on the Races podcast, and I'll say it again here. There is such a huge grey area between his ACL being repaired and Yamaha's overall decline as a factory bike. It's genuinely hard to tell what he's going to do once he's on the Ducati. And I'm actually quite fascinated to see how that goes up, because him with Yamaha is all he's ever known as a MotoGP Premier Class rider. So
we
to
forget
see
this guy was a crash away from being world champion versus Johan Mir in 2020.
Yeah, he was championship runner-up like in 2020 on a 2-year-old bike, by all accounts. Morbidelli is an incredible upside in terms of a rider, and I hope it's still there, and I hope with his repaired knee on a Ducati, it brings out the best in him, because I know all of the Ducati satellite teams, whether it be VR46 or Grassini, are both very high on him as a rider. They think they can genuinely bring his magic back. It's like, basically, come home, Frankie. We've cooked your home-cooked favorite of a spaghetti carbonara here for you. We can fix you.
We can actually fix you, but it's not delusional.
Come enjoy Uccio and Nadia Padovani's cooking. Like, we'll heal you up good, basically. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns around. Some other little minor things to clean up. Like I mentioned, Johan Zarco was offered the World Superbike seat at Ducati alongside Alvaro Bautista for next year. He said no. Apparently that seat's going to go to Niccolo Bulega. Remember him from Moto2?
Oh, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah, so he's killing it in World Supersport right now. So he's going to be going straight into the factory seat next year, apparently. So that's going to be fun. As mentioned, Iagura might be going to Mark VDS. There is also one other seating question. So if this plan rolls out and Bez goes to Pramac, which is looking likely from what I've been told by Simo, I think it's the no-brainer move. I think he has to take the Pramac seat on. There's going to be an open seat at Grassini. Apparently, it is a straight fight between Tony Arbolino, who's leading the Moto2 championship right now,
yeah,
and Jake Dixon.
Whoa.
This is going to split the room.
Did we mention as well the upcoming free agents for next year?
Oh, yeah, by the way, Marc Marquez, both factory Ducatis, Fabio Quartararo, and Aleix Espargaro are all free agents next year.
Yo, the Angels have got to make a splash. They need to get somebody to convince Shohei Ohtani to stick around.
I feel like Shohei Ohtani could do something on that Honda.
Oh, 100%.
I don't know. He's very, very tall.
He could at least he could baseball pitch it out of the track vicinity.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean... and as mentioned earlier, Fabio Quartararo yesterday, as of time of recording, was hot. He has had enough of this factory.
Yeah, he said straight up, you've got till the Misano test in a month's time to show me something to keep me beyond the end of next year. Otherwise, I'm gone. And me and Simo immediately texted each other and said, Aprilia needs to be all in on this. If they have any whiff of getting Fabio over, go get Fabio. Because it's looking like Espargaro is going to retire at the end of next season. He's been very open in saying that this is probably his final contract in the sport. He's 36 years old as it is. He's getting up there in age. Fabio is your headline rider alongside Maverick Vinales is a very strong team.
Oh, well, I know how this ended at Yamaha, to be fair.
Yeah. Maverick Vinales now tries to blow up a V4 instead of an inline 4. That's how this ends.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I wanted to talk about a little bit about this final rumor because, this is one that split the room massively. I spoke to many people in the media center about this, and David Emmett is adamant it's going to Dixon. Jake Dixon is in line for a Gresini Ducati seat in 2024 with Dorna's backing as Warner Brothers, the parent.
Warner Brothers Discovery.
Yeah, let's not forget that Warner Brothers are Discovery's owners. They also own what we now call TNT Sports, the official MotoGP broadcaster in this country. They are planning their own docuseries, very similar to, as mentioned, MotoGP Unlimited, and they want a British mouthpiece to front that docuseries, and apparently they have Dorna's blessing and backing to get Jake Dixon into the Premier class next year.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Is the series right to push this hard for the British market? And by the way, did anybody see his blow up on Moto 2 after he was caught in the incident with Darren Binder?
I personally thought he was just being a whiny bitch, personally. I don't think Darren Binder did much wrong.
I'm glad you said it, because I wrote about it on the DRR post about this, and I was like the media center was like, oh, Dixon's been taken out. And I watched the replay, and I was like, hang on a minute. Okay, Darren Binder's taken a slightly narrower line through the final corner, but he's really not done much wrong on this one. Dixon was trying to go around the outside of him on the final corner, which you just can't do.
You can't do that. Generally, you can't do that in an F1 car, let alone a bike.
No chance.
You're asking a lot of the person you're passing, to try and give you some room. Excuse me.
This rumor.
I didn't feel that Dixon had much of a basis, but hey, it made for great television.
Yeah,
it's
honestly,
just kind of a proposal, because I've seen in other series where I guess smaller or mid-market countries, they want to get somebody into motorsport. They'll have the television provider just throw them a bunch of money to make that happen. I remember was it, if you recall your IndyCar, Mateus Leis, God, unrealized potential there, but apparently Brazilian television was willing to throw money at the sport to make sure that they had at least one, if not multiple, Brazilian drivers in IndyCar, and that's how that happened. It's crazy to think of the United Kingdom as a mid-sized market for any kind of motorsports, but that's where they are in terms of the MotoGP landscape compared to Italy and Spain.
Britain has been the third wheel for quite some time. The best we've had in recent times has been Cal Crutchlow, who was, again, a genuine MotoGP race winner in his own right and a very likable rider in general. People warmed to his blunt sense of humor, and we all got behind that.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one because, first and foremost, I don't like how TNT Sports shoved the microphone in his face mere minutes after that incident. They were looking for a soundbite and they got one. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to say this. Leave Darren Binder alone. Darren Binder has largely been clean for the last 2 years.
Even I can admit that.
I thought, I mentioned this in one of the last videos I ever did on Motorsport101's YouTube channel, that they were talking about bringing in a super license just because Darren Binder was entering the top flight. And all the riders were bitching about it in the middle of a press conference, and I thought that was incredibly mean. And don't get me wrong, the guy had dive bomb on his levers. He didn't help himself at times, right? But he was largely fine in MotoGP, and he's been largely fine since being in Moto2. If anything, he's been on the other side of multiple incidents so far this season that weren't his fault. Darren Binder has largely been fine for a good year and a half, and I don't understand why he's now been typecast as Mr. Crasher just because Jake Dixon rode into the side of him at the British Grand Prix, and then Dixon is basically dragging up old ground to say, he's an absolute idiot, I'm faster, you could toe off me, you've ruined my championship, you've ruined everyone's championships. And I'm just like, dude, it was so uncalled for. You were at fault. It's that sort of shit that I can't stand because it puts me off Dixon to a degree, and he doesn't deserve that because generally here, we like Jake Dixon. He's a lovely guy. He's a very genuine, sincere personality and incredibly likable. If you listen to his backstory about him growing up in Dover and dreaming of being a bike rider, and there's also his partner who's a cancer survivor as well. He was an incredible talent in British Superbikes as well. He's a very likable young man, genuinely. And of course, you shove a microphone in his face when he's at his most vulnerable. Nasty work. I'm not a fan of it. I genuinely am not a fan of it personally.
You pretty much put it perfectly. They were looking for a soundbite. They looked at a powder keg ready to go off, and they got one.
This is Dorna has wanted a British rider in the top flight for quite some time, since Bradley Smith moved on. They know Britain is a big market. They've offered to have their home MotoGP race offered out on free-to-air. The last couple of years, ITP pulled the plug on that at the last minute, which apparently did not go down well. In case you need a State of the Union address on how many people are watching the TNT broadcast right now, we got access to the numbers. MotoGP's live coverage during the British Grand Prix peaked at 100,000.
Yikes.
Oh, that's not good.
It actually peaked during Moto 2, believe it or not. It was what would normally be MotoGP slot. The attendance was actually up 20%. It was just under 50,000 on Sunday, which was an improvement. They tried throwing in musical concerts because they had the Kaiser Chiefs, Chase and Status, and I think it was Razorlight.
Oh, dude, that's bringing me back. That's old EA tracks shit.
It's great, you've brought in the fantastic Hall of Fame crowd of 2004 to come down and perform. That's they've tried to make it more value for money, and it was an improvement to get it to 50k, but apparently the Silverstone are not pleased about that turnout, especially when F1 did 160,000 this year at race day, a new record for an F1 weekend. I think it was Yeah, Jason, you're absolutely right in the chat as well. So, yeah, someone from I can't remember his name, but the lead singer of the Ducati Chiefs was handing out the sprint medals on Saturday. But yeah, like they want a British rider badly. They know it's an untapped market. They know it's their premier English-speaking market, which is what the sport is broadcast in at the end of the day. So it's in their best interest.
Love for us Americans, I guess. Years of Kenny Roberts and Kevin Schwantz and Wayne Rainey and Nicky Caden. It's just like, nah, we're good now.
And now they apparently they are giving Grassini an arm around the shoulder and saying, look, financially, we'll make it worth your while if you put Jake Dixon on one of your bikes. Even though Tony Arbolino is objectively a better bike rider at this point.
Even though there's been some pretty good British riders that have never gotten this sort of push.
We have 5 dudes in Moto2 and Moto3 combined right now. Like, we have something. It's not a lot, but it's something. Like, there wasn't this push for Sam Lowes. There wasn't this push for John McPhee, and God bless him, TNT tried.
I was going to say, there was that push. It just never got anywhere.
That was that kind of 2015 Roman Reigns push.
Yeah. Like, Cal Crutchlow and Bradley Smith didn't penetrate the British market. What makes them think Jake Dixon will?
The one thing that I hope comes out of all of this, if this deal does come down, is that Jake Dixon comes on his first interview as a MotoGP rider. It's just like, you know, my good friend David Zaslav from Warner Brothers Discovery, he calls me 1 pound Jake because I'm the only genuine article in a business full of counterfeit bucks.
Exactly. I don't know, man. Like, I like Dixon. I think he's a decent rider. I just don't think, he's going to be the needle mover that a lot of people want him to be. Like I said, better riders failed to do it. Bradley Smith was a genuinely very good bike rider. He was top independent in the championship one year when he was at Tech 3. Cal Crutchlow is a MotoGP multiple-time race winner. And people didn't get behind him like that.
No.
So the last British rider that people got behind? Was it really Barry Sheene all those years ago?
Carl Fogarty.
And, you know...
That was on production bikes.
Yeah, not really Grand Prix bikes. Yeah.
Because back then, World Superbikes was a more prolific series.
That's because Mick Doohan was just grinding everyone into a pulp every year.
Yeah, World Superbikes was more popular in the UK late 90s than MotoGP was because nobody cared about Mick Doohan here. Like, that's harsh on Mick Doohan, who was obviously fucking one of the best bike riders ever. We all know that. But, like...
Britons just can't stop hating Australian people for like 5 minutes.
Trust me. When it was Worlds in the early 2000s and it was Troy Bayliss versus Colin Edwards, who do you think everybody supported?
USA! USA!
Give us the Texas Tornado. They all got behind Colin Edwards. They were not. I was one of the few Bayliss fans out there. I love Troy Bayliss. I think he's an incredible bike rider. One of the best ever. Love Troy. But no, again, like, we Brits have this really uncool shit about stereotypes about Australians and German people. It's just how we get down, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm summing that up. I like Dixon. I think he's a charismatic guy. I think he's a very likable personality, and I think he's very easy to like. And they're not exactly being subtle about pushing him to the moon on TNT Sports, and I think I think he's going to risk getting exposed like DJ Antonio did at the highest level if he ends up getting that seat. I think Tony Arbolino is a more exciting talent than him, but I also, like, Dorna's always gotten down this way. Dorna likes having big name riders in big name markets. They were pushing Johan Zarco to the moon for years before they lucked into Fabio working out, and now they're doing the same again with Britain because they want a British market and they think Dixon's their dude. And good luck to them on that is what I say.
And then what makes you think that, like, the second attempt at a docuseries is going to go better than the first one, other than it's going to be primarily in English this time?
before I get out of here, I will say this wholeheartedly. If they think copying DTS is going to magically get them a whole set of fans, they have completely missed the point. Like, DTS did as well as it did because it was lightning in the bottle timing. Like, Formula One has had a lot more cultural relevance in this country for a lot longer. Like, people know what Formula One is, even if they don't watch it in the UK. What DTS was the accessibility bridge that so many people needed. Like, I wrote about this on the race where I just said, look, it turned a lot of people who knew what F1 was but didn't understand it into people who cared about it. That's why it did so well in the UK. That's why a bunch of people got into F1 that didn't before. People knew what F1 was as a sport, but didn't know enough to understand and care. That's what DTS did so well, especially when the world stopped turning in 2020. We all know why. MotoGP hasn't got that cultural relevance anymore. It has never recovered from when it lost its BBC free-to-air slot on BBC Two when 1 million people were watching a race every weekend.
You're literally at a tenth of that viewership.
Yeah. They've lost 90% of their TV audience. Like, you know what probably was what was part of the problem as to why it only got to 100,000 viewers? Was half of their hardcore fans were probably already at the track in the first place.
Oh, there's some irony for you.
Yeah.
So you need to ask yourself, where did all these bike fans go? I've said it before, and it's the one thing I agree with Mark Madden from Wrestling Punditry Infamy. Well, he's always said, at one point in America, there were 15 million people a week watching wrestling. Where did all those people go? Like, that's what MotoGP needs to figure out. It needs to figure out where it can get these people back through the door. It needs to market its series a lot better than just saying, hey, here's our docuseries, please care about our dumb sport.
It's just the same as all those other. It's just blindly copying what F1's doing because, hey, it's working for F1 without really looking into why it's working for F1. Hopefully, I really hope I'm not about to jinx something.
Right.
But we don't have another global pandemic sitting in the wings to lock everyone to their Netflix apps on their TV, and the front page on Netflix is plastered with Formula One.
Dude, it's not even going to be Netflix. It's going to be Discovery Plus, and you know it. It's going to be Matt's.
It's their own network.
Well, that garbage-ass application, sorry to say, you're not going to lock people in their houses for another year and a half and plaster the Max app with MotoGP. It's just not going to happen.
No, you can't just lazily put out a docuseries and hope that people are going to flock to your sport.
We've been talking about this for weeks with 100 Days to Indy. It didn't work out.
The show that didn't work
out with NASCAR in recent years.
Yeah. The
NASCAR
show
had a peak.
Yeah, the show that had 12 viewers and 11 of them were Zoe Hamilton. Tell me I'm wrong. Go ahead.
It's going to be interesting to see if that makes the final edit. You're not wrong.
It's objectively like, who went out of their way to watch CW's Indy series on the race that IndyCar bases their entire marketing department around?
Well, it was getting 0.0s in the ratings towards the end of its run. I mean, I'll be shocked.
Can you go lower than 0.0?
No one was watching it.
Not really, but apparently NASCAR is willing to test the market by putting an entire series on America's 5th largest television network by a mile and a stretch.
See, look, you need to I'll put you an example, a basic example as to why this isn't going to work. Even Formula E plastered the London Underground with posters about the fact they were having a race at the XL Centre last weekend. On a basic level, there is marketing. Why are you not targeting the big public cities and saying, hey, we've got a MotoGP race at Silverstone this weekend. We still have tickets available. Come on down. You know, look, I actually don't even really blame Silverstone. They've tried to make it a more affordable event. They've cut the ticket prices down. They've added a musical concert. They've taken that German model of trying to make it more of a festival atmosphere. I applaud them for trying, right? They've acknowledged that they got too caught up in Formula One and its 480,000 attendance over the weekend for F1. You need to promote your series so much better than just dumping it on free-to-air with a network that doesn't care about it. They're a touring car network, ITV. They don't give a shit about having MotoGP. Like, they didn't have... They had a John Wayne Western in their time slot where MotoGP was meant to be this weekend. ITV don't give a flying fuck about MotoGP. Put it on a free-to-air network that actually cares. Put it back on the BBC. They're like they could get some cheap coverage in. They did that before and it worked. Like, promote your sport properly. Use your riders' talent, but don't just make another docuseries thinking you'll do what DTS or Full Swing did. I don't see a rush of people who have become tennis fans because Breakpoint came out on Netflix earlier this year. Anyone? Are you a Nick Kyrgios fan now, Cam? No? Exactly.
And that guy seems like wild and like crazy in unpalatable ways anyway, so I wasn't inclined to be one anyway. But
don't get me wrong, fuck Nick Kyrgios. Let me make one thing clear of his domestic violence having arse. Like, fuck that guy. But still, like, it's... Like, the sport needs to be pouring money into other areas. It needs to be doing it the old-fashioned way, billboard. Here's a bright idea. You have a YouTube channel. Why don't you just stream the sprints for free?
There's thought. Like, we're gonna kvetch and moan about the existence of sprints and how many there are to begin with. Why not just put them out there for free? Get a little taste of the race, a little appetizer. And they'll be like, ooh, there's another one of these? I'm going to check that out.
You copied F1 by putting the sprint format in and you've not fully utilized. Yeah, more people are watching on Saturdays, objectively. Good. You could get even more if you put the sprints on the YouTube channel for free. Here's what you're missing out on. You get 20 laps of this instead of 10 tomorrow if you subscribe to our video pass or you buy a TNT subscription. It's the basics, man. Right, let's get out of here before my head...
Before Dre has an aneurysm live on the show, which would be entertaining, but it would be quite difficult to find a replacement host.
And then also it would mean that you probably wouldn't have many more opportunities to do like the awesome stuff that you did this past weekend.
Right. Like, that's what makes it so frustrating. Everybody I spoke to as fans, and I did actually meet a couple of people that recognized me, which was really, really cool. So shout out to people like Erica and Catherine who bumped into me during the weekend. I was like, Dre, we watch you. Like, bless you, first and foremost. Second of all, everybody I spoke to, including if you read my racist post, Ollie Card was down there, who does all our creative stuff at the race and at WTF1. Also, notwithstanding, nicest man in the world. Trust me on this. He's an angel. Love Ollie. Everybody loved the event that I went down to. Everybody I spoke to about it said they loved the weekend. They loved the event. It's just there wasn't anybody there. That's the problem. They put on a good show. You need to tell people that it exists.
If a good show happens and no one's around to watch it, was it good?
Exactly. They've got to promote this series, and they've got to take some marketing licks to promote this thing, because they're not going to be able to. They're not going to do it just by taking the sprint race format and just copying F1. It doesn't. It's different horses for different courses, and then they need to figure that out. Right, let's get out of here. I've been Dre Harrison. Like, MotoGP is back in a week and a half's time at the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring. Expect another potential domino to fall in silly season by then, probably. I'm looking at you, KTM, trying to get free riders onto two bikes. Keep an eye on that situation between Augusto Espargaro and Pedro Acosta. But yeah, our next episode is going to be on IndyCar in the streets of Nashville. And it didn't suck. I'm as surprised as you are, really, honestly. But until then, I've been Dre Harrison. They've been RJ O'Connell and Cam Buckley. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time. Sayonara.
Later, y'all.
Who? Oh, really? I don't watch tennis.